The alien king fell to his knees, head bowed in shame, a king who'd made a grievous mistake. Months ago, Zorax had foolishly underestimated the humans, thinking his mighty Ventaxian empire would dominate these upstart primates. He'd launched an all-out war, intending to swiftly conquer Earth. But he was wrong, dead wrong. Humanity fought back with a tenacity and ingenuity the Ventaxians had never faced before. Under the brilliant leadership of General Randy Freeman, Earth's defenders outmaneuvered Zorax's forces at every turn. Devastating human weapons tore through supposedly invincible Ventaxian shields. Human hackers infiltrated impenetrable alien networks. Terran scientists unleashed horrific plagues that ravaged the Ventaxian homeworld. The war raged for months, but the outcome was never truly in doubt. Humanity would not be defeated, could not be defeated, not by the likes of Zorax and his arrogant empire. Now, with his armies crushed and his people facing utter humiliation, Zorax knelt before his conquerors, pleading for mercy he knew he didn't deserve. "Please," he begged, "do what you will with me, but spare my people. I was a fool to challenge you. Humanity has proven its superiority in every way. I beg for your forgiveness." The human delegates gazed down at the prostrate king, their faces unreadable. In their hands lay the fate of billions. The once mighty Ventaxian empire would live or die by their word. But would humanity's mercy match their ferocity in war? Or would Zorax's people pay the ultimate price for their king's fatal mistake? In a stark meeting room deep within the Pentagon, the gathered human leaders argued fiercely over King Zorax's plea. The air crackled with tension as General Randy Freeman smacked his head on the table. "We can't trust these aliens," he growled. "This is our chance to end their threat forever. We should demand their total surrender and occupy their worlds." Across from him, Marcus Nolan shook his head. The young diplomat's eyes shone with quiet intensity. "No, General, that path leads only to more bloodshed and resentment. If King Zorax is truly sincere, we have an unprecedented opportunity here. Ventaxian technology and knowledge could propel humanity centuries ahead, and an alliance could foster peace and understanding between our peoples." The room erupted into a cacophony of competing voices, some siding with Freeman's hardline stance, others drawn to Nolan's vision of cooperation. Inscrutable, King Zorax sat silently at the far end of the table, his shoulders sagging under an invisible weight. As the hours dragged on with no resolution, the Ventaxian king grew increasingly restless. Finally, he rose to his feet. "Please," Zorax said, "I offer you our most guarded military secrets and star maps to resource-rich systems. I will give you anything to prove my sincerity." The humans fell silent, some eyeing the king with open suspicion, while others looked intrigued. In the shadows of the room, Senator Rowlus Vex allowed himself a small, cold smile. Chaos and division were his allies. Over the next days, Zorax pored over human history tomes and cultural archives, desperate to find some way to bridge the yawning divide. When he requested a private audience with General Freeman and Marcus Nolan, the two men warily agreed. "In Ventaxian philosophy, we believe that empathy has the power to span any gulf," the king explained, "that forgiveness is a strength, not a weakness. Your species has shown its indomitable spirit. Is it not time to temper that ferocity with wisdom and understanding between different peoples?" Nolan leaned forward, his eyes alight with cautious hope, but Freeman only scowled, unmoved. With time running out and the specter of war looming, King Zorax prepared to make his final appeal to the assembled human leaders. The fate of billions rested on his next words. He only prayed he could find the right ones before the last fragile chance for peace slipped away. As King Zorax stepped up to the podium to make his final plea, a deafening roar shook the building. The gathered human leaders leapt to their feet, their faces etched with alarm and confusion. On the view screen behind Zorax, an image of Earth from space appeared, and there, in orbit around the blue and green jewel of humanity's homeworld, hung a massive Ventaxian warship. Its hull bristled with weapons, an unmistakable declaration of hostile intent. The ship's comm systems crackled to life, and a voice boomed forth. the voice of Warlord Kraxus, Zorax's most implacable rival. "People of Earth," Kraxus snarled, "your spineless king has betrayed the pride and honor of the Ventaxian race. His groveling pleas for forgiveness are a disgrace to our warriors who fought and died in glorious battle against you. I am here to finish what he started. Prepare yourselves for the full fury of the Ventaxian war machine." In the shocked silence that followed, King Zorax turned to face General Freeman and Marcus Nolan, his eyes blazing with desperate urgency. "We haven't a moment to lose," the king said. "If Kraxus attacks now, any hope of peace will be lost, but there may yet be a way to stop him." Zorax revealed that he had installed a secret failsafe aboard the warship during its construction, a last resort to prevent a rogue warlord from wreaking havoc. But to activate it, he would need to physically access the ship's control center, and he couldn't do it alone. Freeman and Nolan exchanged a long, tense look. The general's mind focused, a vein throbbing in his temple. Nolan's eyes darted from the looming ship on the screen to the haggard face of the alien king. "I don't like it," Freeman growled at last. "Trusting you is a hell of a risk. But the alternative—" He glanced at the view screen where Kraxus's ship hung like a sword of Damocles over the planet. "We don't have a choice, do we?" With no time for debate, the three unlikely allies raced to Zorax's cloaked shuttle as alarms blared across the city. They blasted into orbit on a desperate mission to infiltrate Kraxus's ship and stop the warlord before he could reignite the war. Using Zorax's royal override codes, they managed to dock in the warship's hangar undetected. As the airlock cycled open, the Ventaxian king and the two humans exchanged grim nods, acutely aware that the fate of two civilizations now rested on their shoulders. With weapons drawn, they plunged into the bowels of the ship, ready to fight their way to the control center, into a confrontation that would decide the future of human and Ventaxian alike. As Zorax, Freeman, and Nolan raced through the corridors of Kraxus's warship, alarms blared and red emergency lights bathed the metallic walls. Their footsteps echoed on the polished floor as they rounded a corner, coming face to face with a squad of Ventaxian soldiers. "Traitor!" One of the soldiers spat at Zorax, raising his plasma rifle. In a blur of motion, Freeman tackled the alien king to the ground as energy bolts sizzled overhead. Nolan dove behind a bulkhead, returning fire with his sidearm. The air filled with the acrid smell of ozone and burning metal. "This way!" Zorax shouted, gesturing toward a maintenance hatch. The trio scrambled through, sealing it behind them just as another volley of shots peppered the door. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Senator Rowless Vex slipped away from the chaos at the Pentagon. He ducked into a darkened office, activating a concealed communicator. "The plan is proceeding," Vex whispered. "With Kraxus's attack, we'll have no choice but to—" The light suddenly flicked on. Natasha Svarenko, her face a mask of cold fury, stood in the doorway flanked by security personnel. "Senator Vex," she said, her voice dripping with contempt, "I think it's time we had a chat about your extracurricular activities." Vex's eyes widened in shock as the guards moved to restrain him. "You don't understand," he sputtered. "This is for the good of—" "Save it for your trial," Svarenko cut him off. As Vex was led away in handcuffs, she turned to an aide. "Make sure this information reaches both our people and the Ventaxians. They need to know the truth." Back on the warship, Zorax, Freeman, and Nolan fought their way through waves of resistance. They finally reached the ship's nerve center, a cavernous room dominated by holographic displays and banks of alien technology. Warlord Kraxus stood at the command dais, his massive frame silhouetted against the image of Earth. He turned, mandibles clicking in amusement. "So the coward king returns," Kraxus rumbled, "and you've brought your new masters with you. How fitting." Zorax stepped forward, his voice steady. "It's over, Kraxus. Stand down your forces." The warlord laughed, a harsh grating sound. "Over? No, little king, it's only just begun." With a roar, Kraxus lunged at Zorax. The two Ventaxians grappled, crashing into consoles and sending sparks flying. Freeman and Nolan moved to intervene, but found themselves pinned down by Kraxus's guards. As the aliens fought, Nolan noticed a flashing panel near Zorax's position. "The failsafe," he shouted. "It's now or never." With a surge of desperate strength, Zorax broke free from Kraxus's grip. He slammed his palm onto the console, entering a complex series of commands. Alarms wailed as the ship's systems began to shut down. "No!" Kraxus bellowed, but it was too late. The mighty warship, pride of the Ventaxian fleet, went dark. In the following days, news of the averted crisis and Vex's treachery spread like wildfire. On Earth and Ventaxia alike, the political landscape shifted dramatically. General Freeman found himself addressing a joint session of world leaders, his gruff voice filled with an unfamiliar note of hope. "We stand at a crossroads," he said. "We can choose the path of fear and hatred, or we can forge a new way forward. Together." As Freeman spoke, Marcus Nolan sat in a conference room with his Ventaxian counterparts, hammering out the details of what would become known as the Pact of Forgiveness. The air crackled with possibility as former enemies worked side by side. Weeks later, aboard an orbital station, human and Ventaxian leaders gathered for a historic ceremony. As cameras broadcast the event to billions across two worlds, pens touched paper and a new era began. After the signing, Freeman found himself face-to-face with Kravak, the Ventaxian commander he'd fought so bitterly during the war. They regarded each other warily for a moment, before Kravak extended a hand in the human gesture of greeting. "To new beginnings," the alien rumbled. Freeman clasped the offered hand, his weathered face creasing in a rare smile. "To new beginnings," he echoed. As the gathered dignitaries mingled, Marcus Nolan stood to the side, studying a data pad with the details of the upcoming cultural exchange mission. His eyes gleamed with excitement at the prospect of exploring the Ventaxian homeworld. Little did he know that among his team, carefully vetted and chosen for their expertise, lurked individuals with far darker motives. As Nolan finalized the mission roster, shadowy figures made their own preparations, determined to shatter the fragile peace before it could take root. Marcus Nolan's heart swelled with pride as he stepped off the shuttle onto Ventaxian soil. The gleaming spires of the alien capital stretched toward the rust-colored sky, a testament to the technological marvels they hoped to share. Crowds of Ventaxians lined the streets, their mandibles clicking in what Nolan had learned was a sign of excitement. "Welcome, honored guests," rumbled Kravak, extending all four of his arms in a traditional greeting. "May this day mark the beginning of a new era of cooperation between our peoples." Nolan smiled, but a flicker of movement caught his eye. His aide, Jenna, was whispering urgently into a communicator. When she noticed his gaze, she quickly pocketed the device and flashed an overly bright smile. "Everything all right?" Nolan asked, a seed of unease taking root in his gut. "Of course, sir," Jenna replied smoothly. "Just confirming our itinerary." The next few days passed in a whirlwind of meetings, cultural exchanges, and technological demonstrations. Nolan marveled at Ventaxian advancements in energy production and terraforming. But as he pored over schematics late one night, a piercing alarm shattered the silence. Nolan burst from his quarters to find chaos in the streets. Ventaxians stumbled and fell, their exoskeletons turning a sickly gray, the air filled with keening wails of pain and confusion. "What's happening?" Nolan demanded, grabbing a passing human technician. The man's eyes were wide with fear. "Some kind of pathogen. It's affecting all the Ventaxians, but we're immune." Realization dawned, cold and horrifying. Nolan sprinted to the communications center, shoving past panicked staff. He had to warn Earth before it was too late. As he input the emergency codes, the door hissed open. Jenna stood there, flanked by armed members of the human delegation. "I'm afraid I can't let you do that, Marcus," she said, her voice devoid of emotion. Nolan's fingers flew across the console, desperately trying to complete the transmission. "Why, Jenna? We were so close to peace." "Peace?" Jenna scoffed. "These aliens are a threat to human dominance. We're simply ensuring our rightful place in the galaxy." A stun bolt from her weapon struck Nolan's shoulder. As darkness crowded his vision, he saw the message transmit successfully. His last conscious thought was a prayer that Freeman would understand and act in time. Days later, Nolan awoke in a cell deep within the Ventaxian royal palace. The once bustling corridors were eerily silent. Through a small window, he could see pillars of smoke rising from the city. The cell door opened, and Jenna entered, flanked by her fanatical followers. "It's time, Marcus," she said, her eyes gleaming with zealous fervor. "You'll bear witness to the dawn of human galactic supremacy." As they marched him through empty halls, Nolan's mind raced. Where was Freeman? Had his warning reached Earth? And how many Ventaxians had survived this monstrous act? They emerged onto a grand balcony overlooking a sea of gray, lifeless Ventaxian bodies. Jenna raised her arms, addressing a group of human supremacists gathered below. "Today we claim our destiny," she shouted. "With the power of the Ventaxian warp drives, no alien race will stand against us." A thunderous explosion rocked the palace. Nolan's heart leapt as he recognized the distinctive sound of human dropships. Freeman had come. In the chaos that followed, a familiar figure charged through the smoke. Commander Kravak, his exoskeleton pitted and scarred, bellowed a war cry as he hurled himself at Jenna. "For Ventaxia!" the alien roared, tackling her to the ground. Nolan seized the opportunity, wrestling a weapon from one of Jenna's stunned followers. As they traded fire with Freeman's incoming forces, Nolan knew the real battle was just beginning. The fragile trust between humans and Ventaxians lay shattered, and the path to reconciliation would be long and bloody.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.